Inspiring Woman. We are the group made up of Agustina Feito, Bauer, and Florencia Diaz, and today we are going to be talking about Cecilia Grierson. Born into a family of Scottish and Irish immigrants on November 22, 1859, Cecilia enjoyed a bucolic childhood in Uruguay first and later in Entre Rios, where her father had a stay. She had access to a good education in English schools and a large family library, before life was filled with difficulties and shocks, which could test the integrity of her character. After the Entre Rios Revolution of 1870, the family's business began to decline and Cecilia, who was not over 10 years old, went home to help her mother with her younger siblings. Without knowing it, the spiral of obstacles and family tragedies began, which marked his life and forged an iron woman.
The political difficulties made the family patrimony reduce, and the death of her father, when Cecilia was not over 12 years old, only contributed to aggravating the situation. Entrepreneur and restless as she was, at just 14 years old, Cecilia was already in charge of the rural school that her mother had opened in the field where they lived to support the whole family. Later, she was able to travel to Buenos Aires and formalize her studies as a normal teacher. In the big city, she had been employed as a governess. She will remember once that she had to extend her dress to get that job. At that time, age and perhaps knowledge was judged by the length of the skirt. She received a teaching degree in 1878 and obtained a position in mixed school of the Church of San Cristobal.
Everything seemed to indicate that her vocation was in teaching, but life put her back at the helm of her destiny. A friend fell ill and Cecilia wanted to find the remedy to cure her of a chronic respiration disorder. She then made a crazy decision that would change her life and of many women. She would study medicine, a career at that time exclusively for men. There was no record in all of Latin America of a woman who had obtained a medical degree. And while there was no explicit provision preventing registration, there was a regulatory trap and impossible requirement to meet. To enroll in the career, you have to have approved Latin, but that subject was taught only at the National College of Buenos Aires, an institution that at that time was only for men.
Armed with a wheel of iron, she managed to be admitted to the race. She graduated on July 2, 1889, becoming the first doctor in our country. Her actions would confirm her vocation of transforming that reality in which she lived, although she could not always overcome the prejudices of the time, and on occasions her aspirations crashed against the canons imposed by a society that resisted women's access to disciplines reserved until then for men. In 1894, she entered a contest to be a substitute teacher for the midwifery department of obstetrics, but the contest was declared void. It was solely because of my condition as a woman, according to the listeners and one of the members of the examining table, that the jury gave a strange and unique ruling in this competition, not to award the chair to me or my competitor. The reasons and arguments presented on that occasion could fill a chapter against feminism, one she could recall years later.
In 1886, she founded the School of Nurses. Later, she created the Argentine Medical Association, the First Aid Society, and the National Obstetric Association of Midwives. She was member of the Commission for the Deaf-Mutes, Secretary of the Children's Trust, Inspector of the Night Asylum. In 1899, she participated in the International Congress of Women in London, which elected her vice-president. Back in the country in 1900, she founded the National Council of Women of the Argentine Republic and later the Escuela Técnica del Hogar. She also founded the Liceo Nacional de las Señoritas. She chaired the first Congress of the Argentine University Society and was part of the founding group of the Argentine Society of Biotypology, Eugenics, and Social Medicine. She never married or had descendants.
Cecilia Grierson had an intense teaching activity during her life at all education levels. She founded the School of Home Economics and the Society of Home Economics in 1902. A precursor to the Home Technical School, the first in the country in this especially promoted that she studied childcare and was a pioneer in teaching the blind, deaf, and disabled. He kept courses at the university level between 1904 and 1905. The theme was medical gymnastics and kinesiotherapy at the Faculty of Medicine. At the end of her life, Cecilia Grierson suffered poverty and had to survive on a meager retirement. However, that was not an obstacle for him to donate to the National Education Council shortly before his death. His property in the town of Los Cocos, Córdoba, where school number 189 that bears his name was later built. She died in Buenos Aires on April 10 in 1934.
An interesting fact: the House of coined in new designs for the new bills. The option for the protagonist to be animal was eliminated. Now they will be people who left American-Argentine history. For the new 5000 bill, the doctors Ramón Carrillo and Cecilia Grierson were chosen. We did a deep search for a strong woman, and she was one of the best. Teacher, doctor, and an undisputed reference in the history of the fight for women's rights. She had fought with the patriarchal society, and we think that it will be a great idea to talk about one of the first feminists of Argentina and Uruguay.